Living next to my eccentric neighbor, who desperately sought online fame as a YouTuber, was a constant source of annoyance. I endured years of witnessing his ridiculous stunts, from the cinnamon challenge to lying on his car's hood while it inched down the driveway, accompanied by his exuberant shouts of epic win or epic fail or some other equally absurd phrase. Frankly, I was relieved when he knocked on my door one day, announcing his departure for a few weeks and asking me to collect his mail. Finally, I thought, a break from his tiresome antics. I always feared they would somehow spill over into my life. For the first couple of days, everything seemed normal. I picked up his mail, which consisted of bills, some junk mail, and what appeared to be a birthday card. Then one evening I arrived home to find a sizable cardboard box sitting on his porch. In bold red letters it bore the words, "Return to sender." The box was unexpectedly heavy, posing a challenge for me to lift. Even dragging it across the road to my house proved arduous. As I struggled, I realized it was impossible to maneuver it up the stairs and through my front door. I made the decision to store the package in my garage. I never used it for parking my car anyway. The shoddy garage door required a good amount of force and persuasion to open. Dealing with that hassle twice a day was more trouble than it was worth. In hindsight, it would have been wiser to set down the package while wrestling with the stubborn door, but I didn't want to let go of it once I had a good grip. After a few more unsuccessful attempts at prying open the garage door, I lost my grip on the box, and it crashed to the ground, emitting a faint cracking sound. "Damn it," I muttered, hoping I hadn't damaged anything important. I figured I would simply keep the breakage to myself and my neighbor would assume it occurred during transit. Finally managing to open the garage door, which screeched in protest, I hauled the box inside and placed it in a corner, intending to return it to my neighbor whenever he returned. And then I promptly forgot about it, that is, until a few days later. I can't recall precisely when the smell first seeped in through the crack under the door connecting the garage to my house. It gradually intensified over time. Initially, I assumed it was some roadkill that had left its mark on my property, emitting a sickly sweet odor reminiscent of a skunk. I believed it would fade away eventually. But instead, the stench grew stronger with each passing day, prompting me to search for the source. Opening the garage door unleashed an overpowering wave of putrid smell, causing me to recoil and desperately cover my nose. The culprit was easily identifiable. The only change in my garage was the presence of the box in the corner. I remember thinking it might be one of those monthly meat subscription boxes, with its contents having decayed after being left unrefrigerated for so long. How much meat could have been inside that box, considering its large size and weight? It felt like hauling an entire cow. With my nose still shielded, I cautiously approached the box, scissors in hand. Opening it probably wasn't necessary since the bottom had become soggy enough to poke through with a finger, but I had no intention of subjecting my finger to spoiled meat juices. The soggy bottom was the reason I needed to open the box, to avoid spilling everything on the floor. I resigned myself to the unpleasant task of disposing of the meat, one garbage bag at a time, and taking them to the dumpster. It was a process I dreaded. Using the scissors, I cut through the tape sealing the top of the cardboard box. I believed the smell couldn't possibly get any worse, but as I flipped open the flaps, a whole new onslaught of stench assaulted my senses. It was like opening an incinerator, except instead of heat, a cocktail of odors, urine, sweat, excrement, and decay, overwhelmed me. I staggered backward, fighting the urge to vomit. I couldn't bear the thought of that putrid aroma mingling with the horrors contained within the box. Without hesitation, I rushed out of the garage, gasping for fresh air. However, even in that short time, the smell had clung to my clothes, permeating every fiber like an indelible shadow. No matter what I tried, the odor persisted in my nostrils. Air fresheners, face masks, 3 showers, and a change of clothes. None of them could banish the scent. With each passing second, the open box in my garage allowed the smell to infiltrate my home. I had no choice but to confront it. Returning to the garage, I secured a clothespin on my nose, armed with a heavy-duty trash bag, and prepared to tackle the nauseating contents of the box. As I cautiously approached, my eyes watered and my stomach churned in protest. Taking shallow breaths through my mouth, I steeled myself for what I was about to encounter. Inside the box, I found a collection of peculiar objects, as if someone had assembled a macabre assortment of curiosities. There were small jars filled with unidentifiable liquids, dried flowers, and what appeared to be animal bones. A tattered journal lay amidst the chaos, its pages stained and torn. The handwritten entries were a mix of ramblings, illustrations, and cryptic symbols that made no sense to me. Some pages were covered in what seemed to be dried blood, adding to the unsettling nature of the discovery. As I continued to sift through the contents, I stumbled upon a small, ornate wooden box. Unlike the rest of the items, it seemed out of place, as if it held a significance beyond the strange assortment surrounding it. The box was intricately carved with delicate patterns, and as I opened it, I discovered a single, perfectly preserved butterfly. Its vibrant wings shimmered with iridescent hues as if frozen in time. It was a striking contrast to the decay and grotesqueness that filled the rest of the box. I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder at the beauty captured within that small space. As I examined the butterfly, something unexpected happened. The foul stench that had plagued me since opening the box began to dissipate. It was as if the presence of the butterfly brought a breath of fresh air, cleansing the surrounding atmosphere. The noxious odor slowly faded away, leaving only a faint trace behind. Intrigued and somewhat relieved, I carefully placed the butterfly back in its wooden box, and with newfound determination, I resolved to investigate the strange collection further. Perhaps there was more to this than meets the eye. The tattered journal seemed like a good place to start, as it might hold clues about the origin and purpose of these bizarre objects. As I read through the journal, the entries revealed a story of obsession, desperation, and a quest for something beyond comprehension. The author, presumably my neighbor, had delved into dark and forbidden realms, searching for a way to gain power and notoriety. The objects in the box were part of his experiments, attempts to harness supernatural forces and capture their essence. The butterfly, it seemed, was no ordinary creature. It was imbued with a mysterious energy, a symbol of transformation and renewal. The author believed that by capturing and preserving its essence, he could tap into its power and achieve his desired fame and fortune. However, his experiments had gone awry. The foul stench that emanated from the box was the result of a failed ritual, a misstep in his quest for power. The decay and grotesqueness were the side effects of tampering with forces beyond his control. Reading these revelations left me with mixed emotions. On one hand, I felt a sense of relief that my neighbor's eccentricities had not spilled over into my life as I had feared. On the other hand, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for the desperate individual who had succumbed to obsession and lost himself in the process. Deciding that the best course of action was to rid myself of these remnants of his misguided experiments, I gathered all the objects, including the journal, and sealed them in a new sturdy box. I would return them to my neighbor once he returned from his hiatus, hoping that he had learned his lesson and abandoned his dangerous pursuits. With the foul odor finally gone and the strange collection securely stored away, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. The ordeal had been unsettling, but it had also sparked a curiosity within me, an eagerness to explore the unknown, albeit with caution. I couldn't help but wonder what other mysteries and hidden wonders awaited discovery in the world around me. And perhaps in the process I would find a deeper understanding of myself and the human desire for something extraordinary.